Welcome back. A hospital janitor, a terrorist attack. One woman who's been hiding the deadliest secret for 3 years. When armed militants storm Port Callahan General Hospital and take children hostage. Nobody suspects the woman with the mop used to be the most lethal sniper in Shadow Unit. But her former teammate, the terrorist leader, who knows exactly who she is. If you are into intense military thrillers, mash the subscribe button. Let's dive in.
The bullet punched through the fifth-floor window at 14:37, and Diana Walsh didn't flinch. Her mop hit the floor. The yellow water spread like a slow accusation across white tiles, while screams erupted from the pediatric ward. She'd been cleaning the same hallway for 40 minutes, long enough for the janitor's uniform to feel like skin, long enough for people to stop seeing her entirely. Nobody ever saw the janitor. 3 hostiles moved down the corridor, automatic weapons, raised faces covered. The lead one barked orders in a language she recognized from a life she'd buried. His movements were efficient, trained, not amateurs. The hospital's east wing was already sealed. She counted footsteps, weapons, probable entry points. Muscle memory she couldn't kill no matter how many floors she mopped. A nurse stumbled backward, hands raised. The hostile shoved her into a patient room. The door slammed shut. Diana's right hand twitched, the same hand that once held a Mark 7 precision rifle steady in sandstorms and snow. The same hand that had killed 47 confirmed targets before she turned 30. The same hand that now gripped a mop handle and trembled. They moved past her. She was invisible. Just a middle-aged woman in a gray uniform, eyes down, hands dirty. Nobody dangerous. Nobody important. The lead hostile paused, turned his head. For a heartbeat, she thought he saw her. Really saw her. But he just motioned to his team and continued toward the ICU. Her reflection stared back from the polished floor, brown hair, pulled tight face lined with exhaustion, eyes that once earned her the call sign, widow. Eyes that hadn't looked at themselves in a mirror for 3 years. The fire alarm shrieked. More screams. Somewhere a child cried. Diana straightened slowly, left the mop where it fell. Her pulse didn't spike. Her breathing stayed even. That was the worst part. After everything, her body still knew exactly what to do. 72 hours earlier, Port Callahan, Coastal Region, Republic of Valdoria. The morning shift at Port Callahan General Hospital always started the same way. Diana Walsh clocked in at 6 o'clock, collected her cleaning cart from the maintenance closet on the ground floor, and began her route through the East Wing corridors. She'd mapped every square foot of the building over 3 years, which tiles squeaked, which doors stuck, which nurses worked, which shifts. Invisibility required patterns. People stopped seeing what they expected. The cart's left wheel still wobbled. She'd reported it 4 times. Nobody had fixed it. Nobody would. Janitors existed in peripheral vision, noticed only when trash overflowed or floors stayed dirty. She preferred it that way. By 9:30, she'd worked her way to the 5th floor, the pediatric wing where bright murals of cartoon animals contradicted the smell of antiseptic and fear. A little girl with a bald head waved at her from a doorway. Diana waved back, the gesture automatic, empty. She'd learned to smile without feeling it. The mop handle was smooth from years of use, worn in the same places her hands gripped. Different calluses now. The rifle calluses had faded, the ones from a Mk7 precision rifle's stock, from 1,000 hours in prone position, from cold metal and hot brass. These new calluses came from bleach and industrial cleaner, from 10-hour shifts, pushing equipment from a different kind of labor. She'd just finished mopping the hallway near the nurse's station when the sound hit wrong. Not the sound itself. Footsteps, men's voices, nothing unusual in a hospital. But the rhythm, the cadence, The way boots hit linoleum in practiced synchronization, the way voices gave clipped orders instead of casual conversation. Military movement patterns, tactical spacing. Diana's hands didn't stop pushing the mop. Her eyes didn't lift. But every nerve ending in her body went cold and bright. 3 men rounded the corner from the east stairwell. Black tactical gear faces covered weapons visible beneath long coats. They moved with purpose, scanning corners, marking exits. The lead one carried himself like a commander, shoulders back, eyes constantly assessing. A nurse gasped. They moved fast. Nobody moves. The lead hostile's voice cut through the corridor. Accent Eastern Coalition, probably. Trained. Get in the rooms, now! Staff and visitors scrambled. A patient in a wheelchair sat frozen IV, stand still, dripping. One of the hostiles shoved an orderly into a patient room. Another fired a burst into the ceiling, plaster, dust rained down, screams erupted. Diana kept mopping. The hostile nearest her, young, nervous finger tight on his trigger, glanced at her and away. Just a janitor. Just a middle-aged woman in gray coveralls with her name stitched on the pocket, Diana. No last name. Nobody important. She counted them as they passed. 3 visible, but the way they moved suggested more. They were setting a perimeter. This wasn't a random attack. This was a coordinated operation. The lead hostile barked into a radio, East Wing secure, moving to ICU. They continued down the hall. Diana's mop kept its rhythm, dip, ring, spread, push. Her hands knew the motion. Her hands knew a lot of motions. When they rounded the next corner, she straightened. Not quickly. Nothing sudden. Just an old janitor with a tired back taking a moment to breathe. Her reflection stared back from the polished floor. Brown hair pulled into a tight bun, streaks of gray she hadn't bothered to dye. Lines around her eyes, around her mouth. 43 years old. She looked older. She felt ancient. The face in the reflection used to belong to someone else. Someone with a call sign instead of a name badge. Someone who could hold a heartbeat steady while calculating windage and bullet drop at distances most people couldn't see. Someone who'd earned the designation widow because targets died before they saw her coming. That woman was supposed to be dead. Diana had killed her. Apparently not well enough. The fire alarm shrieked. One of them had triggered it. Chaos bloomed. People running, shouting, confusion turning to panic. More gunfire, this time sustained. The hostiles were hurting everyone, taking control of the building sector by sector. She should leave, clock out, walk away. Let someone else handle it. Let the SWAT teams come, let the negotiators do their job. She was a janitor. She mopped floors. The little girl with the bald head appeared in the doorway again, eyes wide with terror. A hostile was moving toward her room. Diana's hands stopped shaking. She left the mop in the middle of the hallway. Yellow water spreading in a slow, accusing puddle. She walked, not ran, walking, drew less attention to the maintenance closet 3 doors down. The keycard hung on her belt. She'd made sure she had access to every closet, every storage room, every locked door in this building. The closet smelled like cleaning supplies and old pipes. She moved past the shelves of disinfectant and paper towels to the back wall, where a ventilation grate sat at knee height. 4 screws, but she'd replaced them years ago with ones that twisted by hand. The grate came free. Inside the ventilation shaft, wrapped in oiled cloth, a Mark 7 precision rifle waited where she'd hidden it on her 3rd day of work, just in case. Diana had spent 3 years telling herself she'd never need it. 3 years trying to believe she could be someone else. 3 years of penance, mopping up other people's messes, trying to wash away a bloodstain that wouldn't fade. She pulled the rifle free. The weight settled against her shoulder like an accusation, like coming home. Her hands remembered before her mind could object. Check the chamber, verify the scope, confirm the magazine. Muscle memory was a prison with no walls. Somewhere in the building, the little girl was crying. Somewhere hostiles were taking control of 200 innocent people. Somewhere Diana Walsh, the janitor, was making a choice. Widow opened the closet door and disappeared into the building's skeleton, the service corridors and maintenance passages that only existed for people nobody saw. God forgive me, she thought. I'm doing it again. The rifle felt perfect in her hands. That was the worst part. The hospital's service corridors existed in a parallel dimension most people never saw. Narrow passages behind walls, crawl spaces above ceiling tiles, maintenance shafts that connected every floor like a building's circulatory system. Diana had mapped every inch during her first month memorizing routes, while pushing her cleaning cart noting access points while emptying trash. Now she moved through them like a ghost. The MK7 hung across her back on an improvised sling torn from a maintenance tarp. She ditched the gray coveralls for dark pants and a shirt from a locker night shift security close enough fit. Her hair stayed in its bun. No time for tactical perfection. This was improvisation built on old training and desperation. Through ventilation grates, she tracked the hostiles' movements. They were good. Too good. Standard terrorist playbook would have meant chaos, panic, immediate demands. These men moved like soldiers on a rehearsed operation. They'd studied the building layout. They knew where to position, how to control sight lines, when to use violence, and when to use silence. 6 hostiles visible so far. Probably more. Radio chatter in her earpiece, she'd lifted one from a supply closet tuned to the frequency they were using. Sloppy of them not to encrypt. Or intentional. Someone wanted listeners. A 3rd floor secured. 15 hostages, no resistance. I see you locked down, doctors cooperating. A pediatric ward, 32 individuals, including 17 children. The last transmission made Diana's jaw clench. They'd identified the highest value targets. Children as leverage. Classic asymmetric warfare. She paused at an access panel overlooking the 2nd floor surgical wing. Below, huddled in a supply closet with the door cracked, she spotted someone who didn't belong with the other terrified civilians. Navy blue scrubs, lieutenant's insignia barely visible on the collar. Military bearing even in fear. Diana tapped the grate. Quiet, rhythmic. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The woman's head snapped up, eyes sharp, calculating. She recognized the pattern. SOS in Morse code, old school but effective. Diana pointed to the ceiling, then at herself, then made a gesture, wait. Stay quiet. The woman nodded once. Professional acknowledgement. Diana found an access ladder and descended 2 floors down, then worked her way through a storage area to emerge behind the woman's position. A quick scan confirmed no hostile eyes. She slipped into the closet and closed the door to a crack. Jesus Christ, the woman breathed. Who are you? Janitor, Diana said. You military? Lieutenant Maya Santos, Navy. I'm here visiting a patient. Maya's eyes tracked to the MK7. That's not a janitor's weapon. It is today. Diana checked the corridor through the crack. How many civilians in this wing? I counted maybe 40 before they locked it down. They have them in the cafeteria 2nd floor. 2 guards. Maya studied her. You know tactical movement. You've done this before. Not a question, an assessment. 3 years ago, I mopped floors, Diana said. Today, I'm the only advantage these people have. You trained in combat. Navy tactical medicine. I can fight if needed. No good. You're going to help me identify their command structure. Diana pulled a small notebook from her pocket, one she'd carried for years, filled with shift schedules and supply orders. She flipped to a blank page and began sketching the hospital layout from memory. They came in through east and west entry points simultaneously. That means coordination, planning. What else have you observed? Maya leaned in. The lead one, tall, moves like an officer he's calling the shots. But there's something off. When he gave orders, he hesitated. Like he was waiting for someone else to confirm. Diana's pen stopped. Waiting for who? I don't know. But twice he looked at his radio before acting, like he was getting instructions from someone not on this floor, a handler, or a commander staying hidden. Diana filed that information away. Their weapons, she asked. Mix of AK pattern rifles and submachine guns. Professional grade, not black market trash. And they have demolition gear. I saw one carrying what looked like breaching charges. Diana's mind raced. Demolition meant they either planned to blow their way out or blow something specific. Hospital infrastructure. Or hostages as a final play. Demands yet? Diana asked. Nothing public. No negotiators that I've seen. Fire department and police are outside, but no action. That was wrong. Standard protocol would have SWAT moving by now, unless the hostiles had leverage that kept them back. Diana needed eyes on the outside perimeter, but she couldn't risk exposure yet. You have any way to contact outside? Diana asked. Maya shook her head. They jammed cell signals. Landlines are cut. We're isolated. Perfect tactical control. These weren't terrorists. These were operators. Diana handed Maya the notebook. You're going to map every hostile position you can observe from safe locations. I need patterns. Guard rotations, radio check-ins, any weakness in their coverage. Can you do that without being caught? Where will you be? No getting a better vantage point. Diana checked the MK7's magazine. Full load. 30 rounds. She had one additional magazine in her pocket. 61 bullets total to resolve a hostage situation with potentially hundreds of lives at stake. She'd worked with less. One more thing, Maya said. The lead hostile. When he was securing this floor, he stopped in front of the employee directory board. He was looking at something. Then he smiled. Diana felt cold wash through her. What was he looking at? Maintenance staff photos. The janitorial roster. The world tilted slightly. He was looking for her. Stay here, Diana said. Don't move unless you have to. If shooting starts, get as many people out as you can through the north stairwell. It connects to the parking garage. Oh wait, what's your name? Diana paused at the door. 3 years of being Diana Walsh, the janitor. Before that, 5 years of being widow. Before that, a name that belonged to a girl who thought she could save people. Doesn't matter, she said. Just stay alive. She slipped back into the walls before Maya could respond. The building's skeleton welcomed her back. Diana climbed access ladders to the 4th floor, moving toward the central observation point, a maintenance platform that overlooked the main atrium. From there, she could see 3 floors and mark hostile positions. She settled into position, rifle scope to her eye. The world narrowed to crosshairs and breathing. Below, the lead hostile stood in the atrium, radio to his ear, listening. Then he lowered the radio and looked up directly at the maintenance platform where Diana crouched. Too dark for him to see, too shadowed. But he looked anyway, as if he knew. He raised his hand in a small gesture. Not threatening, almost greeting. Then he turned away. Diana's heart hammered. That wasn't random. That was deliberate. He knew the building layout well enough to know observation points. He knew someone was watching. He knew someone with training would use the infrastructure. He knew she was here. This wasn't just a hostage situation. This was a trap. And Diana had walked directly into it. The hostile moved toward the pediatric wing, and Diana tracked him through the scope. His movement pattern was familiar. The way he cleared corners, the way he held his weapon, the spacing he maintained from his team. She'd seen it before. She'd trained alongside it. Shadow unit methodology. Her blood turned to ice. She zoomed the scope tighter, focusing on any identifying features. His face was partially covered, but there on his left hand, visible as he adjusted his grip, a scar across the knuckles in a distinctive pattern. Diana knew that scar. She'd watched it form. 5 years ago, in a mission gone sideways when Kyle Bennett had punched through a car window to extract her from an ambush. Kyle Bennett, dead 5 years, killed in action during a classified operation in the Northern Territories. Except he was standing 4 floors below her alive and leading an assault on a civilian hospital. The rifle scope trembled. Not from fear, from recognition, from betrayal, from questions that had no good answers. Kyle looked up again. This time he pulled down his face, covering just enough for her to see. Just enough to confirm. He smiled. Then he spoke into his radio voice, carrying over the channel Diana was monitoring. "Hello, old friend. I was wondering when you'd show up. We have a lot to catch up on." Diana's finger moved to the trigger. One shot, center mass. End this now. But Kyle was standing directly in front of a group of hostages, using them as a shield. Intentional positioning. He knew her capabilities. He knew she wouldn't take the shot with civilians in the line. "I know you won't shoot." Kyle's voice continued over the radio, casual, almost friendly. "Not after what happened last time. But don't worry, Diana. This time I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who the hero is. Or the monster, depending on how this goes." He disappeared into the pediatric wing. Diana lowered the rifle. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. Inside, she was screaming. Kyle Bennett was alive. He was here. He knew she was here. And whatever this operation was, it had been designed specifically for her. The janitor was gone. Widow had been summoned. And this time the ghosts of her past had names, faces, and hostages. She keyed into a different frequency, one she hadn't used in 3 years, one she swore she'd never use again. Emergency Shadow Unit channel. Probably monitored, probably compromised. She transmitted anyway. "This is Widow. I have eyes on the situation. Subject is KIA, confirmed personnel Kyle Bennett. He's alive. This is targeted. Repeat, this is a targeted operation. Advise." Static. Then a voice she didn't recognize. "Widow, your designation was revoked. You are not authorized for field operations. Stand down. There are 200 civilians. Stand down. Local authorities have been advised. Do not engage." The channel went dead. Diana sat in the darkness of the maintenance platform, rifle across her lap, and understood with crystalline clarity what was happening. Shadow Unit wasn't coming to help. They'd probably known Kyle was alive. They'd probably known he'd make a move. And they'd left Diana here, an erased operative with no official existence, as the only obstacle between a rogue former operator and a building full of innocent people. Deniable, disposable, alone, just like last time. Below, Kyle's voice echoed over the hospital PA system. "Attention, Port Callahan General Hospital. You are now under our control. The building is rigged with explosives. Any attempt at rescue will result in detonation. We have one demand, and it's very simple. We want the woman who's been pretending to be a janitor. We want Widow. You have 2 hours to send her to the pediatric wing. If she doesn't come, children start dying. The clock is ticking." The PA system cut off. 200 people just learned that their survival depended on a woman who didn't officially exist anymore. A woman who was trying to disappear. A woman who couldn't save everyone last time and knew she wouldn't be able to this time either. Diana closed her eyes, opened them. The rifle felt heavy and light all at once. 2 hours. She had 2 hours to decide if Diana Walsh, the janitor, would finally die so Widow could finish what she started, or if she'd let the building burn rather than become a killer again. The little girl with the bald head was somewhere in that pediatric wing, along with 16 other children, along with doctors, nurses, parents. Diana stood, checked her rifle, started moving toward the pediatric ward. Not because she wanted to, because she had no choice. Some ghosts don't stay buried. Some sins don't allow redemption. And some women, no matter how hard they try, can't escape the widow they've always been. Diana had 17 minutes to reach the pediatric wing before Kyle's deadline started cutting into her options. She moved through the walls like water through pipes, silent, inevitable finding paths that didn't exist on official blueprints. The rifle stayed slung across her back. Close quarters meant handgun work. She'd lifted a security guard's sidearm from a locker on the 3rd floor, a standard-issue semi-automatic 15 rounds. Not her preferred weapon, but preferences were luxuries she'd surrendered 3 years ago. The service corridor behind the pediatric wing smelled like old insulation and years of trapped air. Through a ventilation grate, she could hear children crying. Soft, muffled sounds that hurt worse than screams. Screaming meant fight. Crying meant fear had won. She counted hostiles through the grate. 2 visible in the main ward. Kyle would be deeper inside in the treatment rooms where sight lines were controlled. Using the children as shields, as leverage, as bait. He knew her too well. They'd served together for 2 years. Partnered on 11 missions. He'd been her spotter on 6 of those. The eyes that found targets, the voice that calculated wind and distance, the steady presence that made impossible shots possible. They'd saved each other's lives 4 times. She'd trusted him with secrets she'd never told anyone else, and then he died. Supposedly. The mission report said insurgents had overrun their position in the Northern Territories. Kyle had stayed behind to cover the team's extraction. They'd recovered enough of his body to confirm identity. Closed casket funeral. Full honors. She'd stood in the rain and watched them lower an empty box into the ground. Except now he was here alive and holding children hostage to draw her out. Questions could wait. Right now, she needed to understand his tactical setup before the deadline forced her hand. Diana found a ceiling access panel and climbed into the space above the pediatric wing. Dust and darkness. She moved on her belly across support beams, distributing weight carefully. Below, voices filtered through gaps in the dropped ceiling tiles. A movement in the east stairwell. Could be police. Negative. They won't risk it. Not with the demo charges visible. Demo charges. Bluff or real Diana couldn't afford to assume bluff. She reached a position directly above the main ward and lowered her eye to a gap in the tiles. The view opened up like a photograph of hell. 17 children sat against the far wall, hands, visible, eyes wide. Ages ranging from maybe 5 to 15. The girl with the bald head was there clutching a stuffed rabbit. Parents and nurses sat nearby, equally terrified. 2 hostiles stood guard, weapons ready, positions that gave overlapping fields of fire. Professional setup, and in the center of the room, sitting casually on a desk like he was teaching a class, Kyle Bennett had removed his mask completely. Diana's breath caught. 5 years hadn't changed him much. Same sharp features, same calculating eyes, same way he held himself with coiled energy. The scar on his hand was matched by a new one across his jaw, recent, maybe 6 months old. His hair was shorter now, shot through with gray at the temples. He looked older. He looked harder. He looked exactly like someone who died and crawled back. 23 minutes, Kyle said, checking his watch. He wasn't speaking to the hostages. He was speaking to the room, to the walls, to Diana. 23 minutes until our guest of honor decides if she's brave enough to show her face. What do you think? Will she come? One of the other hostiles, younger, nervous, shifted his weight. What if she doesn't? Kyle's smile was cold. Then we start with the sickest ones. The ones who won't survive anyway. At least we'll be merciful about it. A woman sobbed. The little girl with the bald head squeezed her rabbit tighter. Diana's hand moved to her sidearm. The angle was possible. Difficult, but possible. She could drop through the ceiling, take Kyle with the first shot, engage the 2 guards before they reacted. Maybe, but maybe wasn't good enough. Not with 17 children in the room. One stray bullet, one ricochet, one hostile with a twitchy trigger finger, and a dying reflex, that's all it would take to turn rescue into massacre. Kyle stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city beyond. "You know what I learned when I died," he said, still speaking to the invisible Diana he knew was listening. "I learned that being a ghost is liberating. No records, no oversight, no command structure telling you what you can and can't do. No missions that turn out to be lies." He turned back to face the room. "I learned that the people who trained us, who turned us into weapons, they don't care if we live or die. As long as we complete the mission. As long as the paperwork is clean." His voice carried an edge, now something sharp and broken. "I learned that when you kill the right people, they bury you instead of thanking you. When you see the wrong things, they make you disappear." One of the children whimpered. Kyle's expression softened slightly. "I'm not going to hurt you," he told the kids. "Not if I don't have to. This isn't about you. This is about the people who sent us to kill your parents, your teachers, your neighbors in foreign countries you'll never see. This is about holding up a mirror so the world can see what its heroes really look like." Diana's jaw clenched. This wasn't about tactics anymore. This was about making a statement. Kyle had gone ideological. True believers were the most dangerous kind of hostile because they'd already made peace with their own deaths. 15 minutes, Kyle announced. He pulled out a radio and switched to an open-frequency one that would broadcast to police outside to media monitoring emergency channels to anyone listening. "This is a message to the authorities surrounding Port Callahan General Hospital. In 15 minutes, if the woman known as Widow does not present herself in the pediatric wing, I will execute one hostage every 5 minutes until she arrives. You cannot storm this building. We have explosives wired to multiple floors. Any breach attempt will result in structural collapse." He paused, letting that sink in. "Widow knows who I am. She knows what I'm capable of. And she knows I'm not bluffing." Kyle's eyes swept the ceiling as if he could see through the tiles to where Diana crouched. "Come home, Diana. Let's finish the conversation we started 5 years ago. The one about the woman you killed. The one about orders we should never have followed. The one about what happens to soldiers who ask too many questions." He clicked off the radio. Diana closed her eyes. He was going to force her into the open. Force her to confront not just him, but everything that had driven her into hiding. Make her choose between remaining invisible and saving innocent lives. It was a perfect trap because there was no good choice. She moved carefully back across the ceiling beams, descending through a maintenance shaft 2 rooms away. She needed to reposition, needed to find an angle that gave her advantage. The clock was ticking, but rushing meant dying, and dying meant leaving the hostages with no protection at all. The shaft led to a medical supply room. Diana dropped down quietly, checked the space clear. She moved to the door and cracked it open. Kyle stood in the hallway alone, waiting. "Hello, Diana," he said quietly. Her sidearm was in her hand before conscious thought. Aimed center mass. Finger on trigger. 3 pounds of pressure away from ending this. Kyle didn't move. Didn't raise his weapon. Just stood there, hands visible, expression unreadable. "Why, you can shoot me," he said. "But my team has orders. If I don't check in every 5 minutes, they start killing hostages. And you know I trained them well. They'll follow orders even if it means dying." "Why are you alive?" Diana's voice came out steady. Cold. The voice that belonged to Widow, not Diana Walsh. "Because I chose to be. Same reason you're alive. We both walked away from Shadow Unit. Difference is, I was honest about it." Kyle tilted his head. "You think mopping floors makes you not a killer. You think you can wash blood off with disinfectant? I haven't killed anyone in 3 years. Yet. You haven't killed anyone yet. He took a step closer. Diana's aim didn't waver. But you're thinking about it right now. You're calculating trajectory considering collateral weighing acceptable losses. It's what we do. It's what they made us. They made you a terrorist. Kyle's laugh was bitter. Terrorist, operative, soldier. What's the difference? We both followed orders that got innocent people killed. We both pulled triggers for causes we didn't understand. The only difference is I stopped pretending there was honor in it. Diana's finger tightened on the trigger. The woman I killed was a journalist. Kyle interrupted. Investigative. She'd spent 2 years documenting shadow unit operations in the Northern Territories. Civilian casualties we caused. Villages we destroyed. The mission briefing said she was an intelligence asset for the enemy. That was a lie. She was going to expose us. So they sent us to silence her. And you took the shot. The words landed like bullets. I was told she was a hostage, Diana said. I was told the target was using her as a shield. And you believed them. Because we always believed them. Kyle's voice softened. I'm not here to punish you, Diana. I'm here to make sure what happened to us doesn't stay buried. The world needs to see what Shadow Unit really is. What we really did. By taking children hostage, by forcing the truth into the light. Shadow Unit operates in darkness. They erase people like us when we become inconvenient. They bury missions that don't fit the narrative. Someone has to make them visible. Diana lowered her weapon slightly. Not from trust. From calculation. What do you want? I want you to stop hiding. I want you to face what we did. I want Shadow Unit to have to acknowledge that we exist, that our missions happened, that the blood we spilled wasn't for freedom or justice. It was for political expedience and classified budgets. Kyle met her eyes. And I want the woman who trained beside me, who I trusted with my life, to decide if she's going to keep protecting the system that destroyed us both. By letting you murder children to make a point. By standing with me when I expose the truth. By being a witness. By finally being honest about what we are. He gestured to the pediatric wing behind him. Those kids, they're scared now. But they'll live. Shadow Unit's next targets won't. Someone has to stop them, Diana. It might as well be us. Diana raised her weapon again. I'm not on your side. But then you're on theirs. And we both know what they do to people who don't follow orders. The radio on Kyle's hip crackled. Boss, police are moving equipment. Looks like they're preparing for an entry. Kyle sighed. Time's up. You need to decide. Walk away and let me handle this my way. Or step into that ward on camera and we force Shadow Unit to acknowledge that Widow still exists. That our missions happened. That they can't just erase us. And if I refuse, then I start killing hostages and see how long your conscience lets you hide. He turned toward the pediatric wing. 10 minutes, Diana. After that, the first child dies, and her blood is on both of us. He walked away, leaving Diana alone in the hallway with a gun in her hand and no good options. She could take the shot at his back. Maybe his team wouldn't follow through. Maybe the police would breach before more people died. Maybe she could fade back into the walls and disappear again. Or she could walk into that room and let Kyle turn her into a symbol. Let him expose her past, destroy her anonymity force Shadow Unit, to acknowledge crimes they'd buried. Trade her invisibility for those 17 lives. The little girl with the bald head was in that room. So were 16 other children who didn't ask to be part of a war between ghosts and lies. Diana holstered her sidearm, unslung the MK7, checked the magazine one more time. She'd become widow again to save people. She'd hidden as Diana to escape the blood. Now Kyle was forcing her to choose which identity mattered more. She walked toward the pediatric wing, not because she believed in Kyle's crusade, not because she thought exposure would bring justice, but because she'd failed to save one innocent woman 3 years ago, and she couldn't live with failing 17 children today. Even if it meant destroying the life she'd spent 3 years building. Even if it meant becoming the killer she'd tried so hard not to be. The door to the pediatric wing stood open. Kyle waited inside, camera phone ready, smile sharp as broken glass. "Welcome home, widow," he said. Diana stepped into the light, into the camera's view, into the truth she'd been running from. The janitor died in that moment, and the woman who remained wasn't sure which name she answered to anymore. The pediatric wing felt smaller with a camera pointed at her face. Kyle stood behind a phone mounted on a tripod, broadcasting live to channels Diana couldn't track. The 2 hostiles in the room kept their weapons trained on the crowd, but their attention had shifted. Everyone was watching her now. The woman who'd pushed a mop past their rooms for 3 years. The janitor who knew everyone's name and never made eye contact. The woman who was apparently someone else entirely. "Tell them your name," Kyle said. Not a request. A command delivered with the casual authority of someone who knew she'd comply. Diana stood in the doorway, MK7 slung across her back hands, visible and empty. She'd made a choice walking through that door. Now she had to see it through. "Diana Walsh, she said. Kyle smiled. "Your real name." The children stared at her. The little girl with the bald head clutched her stuffed rabbit eyes wide with confused recognition. The nice janitor lady. The one who always waved back. Diana's jaw tightened. "That is my real name." "Then tell them your designation. Tell them what you did before you decided mopping floors was penance enough." Kyle's voice carried an edge now sharp and insistent. "Tell them about the woman you killed." The room went silent except for the hum of medical equipment and the shallow breathing of terrified people. Diana looked at the camera. Somewhere someone was watching this. Shadow unit monitoring officers, intelligence analysts, maybe even the handlers who'd given her the order 3 years ago and then buried her when she questioned it. My designation was widow," she said quietly. "I was a sniper for a classified military unit. I completed 47 confirmed eliminations over 5 years of service." One of the nurses made a small sound. The kind of sound people make when they realize they've been standing next to a monster. 47, Kyle repeated. "Including the last one." "Tell them about her." Diana's hands curled into fists. "We don't need to do this." Yes, we do. Because you've been hiding from it. Because Shadow Unit buried it. Because that woman's family deserves to know their daughter didn't die in a random terrorist attack. She was executed by her own government for asking the wrong questions. Kyle stepped closer. "Say her name, Diana. You owe her that much." The memory rose unbidden. A rooftop in the Northern Territories. 3 years ago. Rain turning the concrete dark and slippery. Marcus Webb beside her, quiet and steady, calling wind patterns through the scope. "Target is in the window. 2nd floor. Holding hostage. You have the shot." She'd taken it. Center mass. Perfect execution. The target had dropped. So had the woman he'd been holding. "To Elena Caruso," Diana said. The name tasted like ash. Italian journalist, 34 years old. She was investigating civilian casualties in the Northern Territories. Our command told us she was an intelligence asset for the enemy. Told us she was being held by a high-value target we'd been tracking for months. Told us the shot would save her life. "And you believed them," Kyle said. "I followed orders. You killed an unarmed woman." Diana's voice went cold. "I killed the target. She was collateral damage. That's what the report said. Acceptable losses in the pursuit of mission completion. That's what they told you to say in the debrief. Kyle's voice carried years of suppressed rage. But that's not what happened. You know it. I know it. Marcus knew it before he died, covering up their lies. The mention of Marcus hit like a punch. Diana's breath stuttered. Kyle saw it, pressed harder. Tell them the truth. Tell them what you saw through that scope before you pulled the trigger. The memory sharpened, crystallized. Diana had spent 3 years trying to blur it, to smooth the edges, to make it something she could live with. But Kyle was right. The truth had teeth, and it had been chewing on her for 36 months. Through the scope, Diana said slowly, I saw a woman standing in a window. She wasn't being held. She wasn't restrained. She was talking to someone behind her, taking notes. The man we were told was a high-value target. He was sitting at a table, eating dinner. The words came faster now, like a wound that had been sealed too long without proper cleaning. I radioed to confirm target identification. Command said positive ID, said the woman was a shield, said take the shot. Marcus. Her voice caught. Marcus told me it didn't look right, told me to wait for clarification, but Command overrode him. Said we had a 30-second window before the target relocated. Said if I didn't take the shot, the operation was compromised. So you took it, Kyle said quietly. So I took it. Diana closed her eyes, saw it again. The way Elena Caruso had turned toward the window at the last second. The way the bullet had punched through glass and flesh. The way she dropped, and the man at the table had stood in shock, not like a terrorist, but like a husband watching his wife die. She wasn't a hostage, Diana continued. She was interviewing him. Her camera was on the table, her laptop. She was documenting something, and I killed her before she could finish. One of the nurses was crying now. Quiet, muffled sobs. After the mission, Kyle said, you filed a report questioning the intelligence. You asked for clarification on target identification. You requested a review of the operation. What happened? Diana opened her eyes. I was told the mission was classified success. Elena Caruso's death was listed as collateral damage during a counterterrorism operation. Her family was told she died in an insurgent attack. The man I shot turned out he wasn't a terrorist. He was a source. Someone Elena had been working with to expose illegal shadow unit operations. We killed both of them and called it a win. And when you kept asking questions, Kyle prompted, I was offered a commendation, told that my concerns were noted, but the mission parameters were sound. Told that operational security required discretion. Diana's voice hardened. Then Marcus died. 3 weeks later. Training accident, they said. Fell during a rappelling exercise. Except Marcus had done that exercise 300 times. He didn't fall. He was pushed. Kyle nodded slowly. Because he was going to testify. Going to confirm that the intelligence was fabricated. That shadow unit had ordered an assassination and dressed it up as a rescue operation. I couldn't prove it, Diana said. But I knew, and they knew I knew. So they gave me a choice. Accept the commendation, stay quiet and continue serving, or decline the honor and accept a medical discharge for psychological trauma. You chose option 3, Kyle said. You disappeared. I walked away, changed my name. Found a job where nobody asked questions. Tried to become someone who didn't kill people for a living. Diana looked at the children against the wall. Tried to save lives instead of taking them. The little girl with the bald head was still staring at her. Not with fear now, with something else. Confusion, hurt. The look children get when adults betray the simple rules they thought governed the world. Nice people don't kill. Heroes don't murder. The janitor who waves at me can't be a monster. You see, Kyle said to the camera, to the watching world, this is what Shadow Unit does. They turn soldiers into assassins. They fabricate intelligence to justify murders. And when someone asks questions, they bury the evidence and the witnesses. Elena Caruso's family still doesn't know the truth. Marcus Webb's family thinks he died in an accident. And Diana Walsh has spent 3 years mopping floors because she couldn't live with what they made her do. He turned to Diana. How many others? How many missions were lies? How many people did we kill because some analysts decided they were inconvenient? I don't know, Diana said honestly. Exactly. Because we never asked. We just followed orders. We were good soldiers. We trusted the system. Kyle's voice rose. And the system fed us to the wolves the moment we became liabilities. One of the hostiles shifted nervously. Boss police are repositioning. We should move to phase 2. Kyle held up a hand. Not yet. He looked at Diana. You came here to save these people. I respect that. But saving them doesn't erase Elena Caruso. It doesn't bring Marcus back. It doesn't fix what Shadow Unit broke. I know, Diana said. I'm not here for redemption. I'm here because children shouldn't die for sins they didn't commit. But they die for ours all the time, Kyle countered. That's the point. Shadow Unit operates in the dark. They kill journalists, activists, whistleblowers, anyone who threatens their operations. And they use people like us to do it. We're the trigger fingers. We're the plausible deniability. So you take children hostage. You terrorize a hospital. How does that make you different from them? Kyle's expression hardened. Because I'm making them visible. Because this broadcast is going out to news agencies, human rights organizations, congressional oversight committees. Because when this is over, Shadow Unit can't just bury it. They'll have to acknowledge we exist, that our missions happened, that Elena Caruso was murdered. And if people die in the process, people are already dying, just quietly, overseas, in classified operations that will never make headlines. At least this way the world is watching. Kyle checked his watch. You have a choice now, Diana. Work with me. Help me expose Shadow Unit. Or try to stop me and watch these children become collateral damage in a war you know is unjust. Diana looked around the room. 17 children, 8 adults. 2 armed hostiles who believed in Kyle's cause. 1 former partner who'd crawled back from the dead to wage war against the system that created them. And her. A woman who'd tried to become invisible and failed. I won't help you, Diana said. But I won't let you murder children. Kyle sighed. Then we have a problem. He nodded to one of the hostiles. The man grabbed the nearest child, a boy maybe 9 years old, thin and pale, and dragged him forward. Pressed a gun to his head. The mother screamed. Diana's hand moved to her sidearm. I don't, Kyle said sharply. You draw, he shoots. You shoot me, the other guard shoots her. He pointed to a nurse. And the explosives we planted detonate automatically if I don't send a cancellation code every 10 minutes. You can't win this tactically, Diana. The only way forward is together. Diana's mind raced. He was right about the tactical situation. She couldn't neutralize 3 hostiles before at least one of them killed someone. The demo charges, real or bluff, added too many variables. But if she cooperated, she'd be validating his methods, becoming part of his statement, proving that terrorism worked if the cause was righteous enough. There were no good choices, only different kinds of failure. Well, let the children go, Diana said. Keep me. Keep the adults if you need hostages. But let the children walk out. Kyle considered. And then what? You become my prisoner. My proof that Shadow Unit creates killers. See, I become your leverage. A former operative is worth more than 17 sick kids. Shadow Unit will negotiate if you have me. Shadow Unit will let you die. Kyle said flatly. You're erased. You don't exist. Why would they bargain for a ghost? Because I know things. Mission details, handler names, operations that haven't been declassified. Diana was lying. She knew fragments not enough to damage the organization. But Kyle didn't need to know that. You want to expose them? I'm a better witness than dead children on camera. Kyle studied her, weighing options, calculating odds. Well, you'll cooperate, he asked. You'll testify to what you know. I'll tell the truth about Elena Caruso, about Marcus Webb, about missions I participated in. All of it. Diana met his eyes, but only if the children walk out now. The room held its breath. Kyle lowered his weapon, nodded to his men. Let them go. Children only. Adults, stay. The hostel holding the boy released him. Parents clutched their children, not wanting to be separated, but Diana caught the eye of the nearest mother and nodded slightly. Let them go. Save them first. The mother understood. Kissed her daughter, pushed her gently toward the door. One by one the children filed out. 17 pairs of eyes passed Diana on the way, some grateful, some confused. The little girl with the bald head stopped, looked up at her. Are you a good person? She whispered. Diana knelt down, met those eyes that had no reason to trust her anymore. I'm trying to be. The girl hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter, then walked out with the others. When the last child cleared the doorway, Kyle locked it behind them. Noble. Stupid, but noble. They're out. That's what matters. Now you're my hostage, Kyle said. And the world is watching a former Shadow Unit operative admit to murder on live television. This is exactly what I wanted. Diana stood. Then you got what you wanted. Now what? Kyle's smile was cold and victorious. Now we wait for Shadow Unit to decide if they care enough to save you. And when they don't, we prove to everyone watching that the government creates killers and discards them. You'll be the evidence they can't bury. He was wrong about one thing, though. Diana wasn't planning to be anyone's evidence. She was planning to end this, one way or another, even if it meant becoming the thing she'd spent 3 years trying not to be. Even if it meant Widow had to die so Diana could live, or the other way around. She wasn't sure which anymore. The pediatric wing settled into an uneasy stillness after the children left. 12 adult hostages remained. Nurses, parents, one doctor who'd been treating patients when the takeover began. They sat against the far wall, hands visible eyes tracking between Diana and Kyle like spectators at a tennis match, where the ball was made of bullets. Kyle's 2 men repositioned, covering the exits. Professional spacing. Overlapping fields of fire. They'd done this before, or been trained by someone who had. Diana stood near the center of the room, deliberately not near cover, making herself the obvious target. If shooting started, she wanted the first bullets coming at her, not the civilians. Kyle circled her slowly, phone still broadcasting. You know what's interesting? He said, speaking to the camera as much as to her. Shadow Unit spent millions training Diana Walsh to kill. Equipment, tactics, psychological conditioning. They invested in creating the perfect weapon. And then when she developed a conscience, they threw her away like broken equipment. I left voluntarily, Diana said, because staying meant becoming complicit in more lies. More murders dressed up as missions. Kyle stopped in front of her. How many of your 47 targets were fabricated threats? How many Elena Carusos did you kill before you started questioning orders? Diana didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the question had haunted her every night for 3 years, and she still didn't know. One of the nurses, younger maybe 25, wearing scrubs with cartoon characters, spoke up quietly. You've been cleaning our floors for 3 years. You knew our names. You asked about our families. Diana turned to face her. Yes. Were you watching us gathering intelligence? No, I was mopping floors. But you're a spy, an assassin. People like you don't just retire. The nurse's voice shook. How do we know this isn't some kind of operation? How do we know you're not working with him? Kyle laughed. She's definitely not working with me. Diana's problem is she still believes in saving people. She still thinks there's a difference between necessary violence and murder. She hasn't accepted what we both know, that Shadow Unit erased that distinction the moment they sent us to kill Elena Caruso. No, there is a difference, Diana said. You're terrorizing innocent people to make a political statement. I'm trying to keep them alive. By offering yourself as a hostage, by confessing on camera, you just destroyed any chance you had at a normal life. Kyle gestured to the broadcast phone. Every intelligence agency in the world is watching this. Shadow Unit will have to eliminate you now. You're too exposed, to ignore, too knowledgeable to leave walking around. You just signed your own death warrant trying to save people who think you're a monster. He wasn't wrong. Diana had calculated that cost the moment she walked through the door. The anonymity she'd built, the quiet life, the possibility of redemption through mundane work, all of it was gone now. Even if she survived this, Diana Walsh, the janitor, was dead. Shadow Unit would find her, silence her. Permanently this time. But 17 children had walked out of this room alive. That was worth the price. I've been dead before, Diana said. I can be dead again. Kyle studied her. You really believe that, don't you? You think dying makes up for what you've done. Martyr complex, classic Shadow Unit conditioning. They taught us to value the mission over survival. They taught us to protect the innocent over ourselves, Diana corrected. You've twisted that into justification for violence. I've accepted the truth of it. You're still in denial. Kyle checked his watch. Police are getting restless. They'll try something soon. SWAT team is probably positioning on the roof. Standard hostage rescue protocol, insert from above, clear room by room. Diana had calculated the same thing. Port Callahan PD would have called in regional tactical support by now. They'd be running scenarios, building entry plans, waiting for the right moment. Your demo charges, Diana said. Real or bluff? Kyle smiled. What do you think? I think you're too smart to actually rig the building to collapse. Too many variables, too much risk of premature detonation. But I think you have something. Breaching charges, maybe. Enough to make entry teams hesitate. Good analysis. See, you still think tactically. Still calculating scenarios. Still widow no matter how many floors you mop. He walked to the window, looked out at the police perimeter below. The charges are real enough. Strategic placement. Not enough to bring down the building, but enough to kill anyone who tries coming through certain doors. I'm not suicidal, Diana. I'm making a point. Stay what point? That Shadow Unit is corrupt, that we were used. People already know governments lie. This doesn't change anything. It changes visibility. Elena Caruso's death was buried in classified files. Now it's trending on social media. By tonight, journalists will be demanding answers. Congressional oversight committees will have to respond. Shadow Unit operates in darkness. I'm dragging them into the light. One of the adult hostages, a father whose daughter had just evacuated, spoke up. My child is safe because of her. He nodded toward Diana. I don't care what she did before. She saved my daughter. Kyle turned. She saved your daughter by becoming the thing she's been hiding from. She saved one child by admitting she murdered a woman. Do you think that's a fair trade? I think she's trying to make up for her past, the father said. That's more than you're doing. Kyle's expression darkened. I died for Shadow Unit. I was erased just like Diana. Difference is I didn't accept it. I didn't hide. I came back to make them acknowledge what they did. By becoming what they are, Diana said quietly. By using violence to force compliance, you're not exposing Shadow Unit, you're proving their methods work. No. I'm proving their methods create monsters, and then I'm letting the world decide if they want to keep creating them. Kyle turned back to his phone, adjusting the camera angle. We've been broadcasting for 42 minutes. Time for Phase 2. Diana's muscles tensed. What's Phase 2? Deep proof that Shadow Unit is watching. Proof that they care more about protecting their secrets than protecting their people. Kyle pulled out his radio, switched to an encrypted channel, one Diana recognized from her operational days. Shadow Unit command frequency. This is Kyle Bennett, call sign Reaper, declared KIA 5 years ago. I'm alive. I'm in Port Callahan General Hospital. And I have one of yours, Widow. If you want her back, you'll acknowledge the Elena Caruso operation. You'll release the classified mission files. You'll admit that you ordered the execution of an unarmed journalist and covered it up as counterterrorism. Static. Then a voice Diana recognized, Commander Sarah Mitchell, her former handler. This channel is no longer active. Identify yourself properly and state your demands through official channels. Kyle smiled. You know exactly who I am. And you know Widow is here. I have her on camera. The world is watching. You have 1 hour to release the files or I execute her on live television. Then everyone sees what you do to people who ask questions. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Then you'll watch your former operative die. And every news agency will run footage of the woman Shadow Unit abandoned. The woman who killed on your orders and then you erased when she developed a conscience. That's a story the oversight committees will love. A pause, then stand by. The channel went silent. Kyle lowered the radio. Now we wait. They'll debate, weigh options, calculate political costs, and eventually they'll decide you're expendable. Diana didn't doubt it. Shadow Unit had erased her once already. They wouldn't hesitate to let her die if it meant protecting classified operations. But Kyle had made a tactical error. He'd revealed his timeline. 1 hour before execution. That gave Diana 60 minutes to find a weakness, create an opportunity, shift the equation. She scanned the room systematically. 2 hostiles, both armed with automatic weapons. Standard magazines, 30 rounds each. Kyle had a sidearm visible under his jacket and probably a backup weapon. Standard operating procedure for operators who expected betrayal. The room had 3 exits. Main door locked and probably wired with breaching charges like Kyle said. Window 5th floor, too high to jump without injury. Service door led to a supply closet which connected to maintenance corridors. The service door was her best option, but it was behind one of Kyle's men. Getting to it meant crossing his line of fire, unless she created a distraction. Diana turned to Dr. Santos, the Navy lieutenant she'd spoken with earlier. The doctor was sitting with the other hostages, quiet and observant. Their eyes met. Diana made a subtle gesture, 2 fingers, then pointing to her watch, then to the service door. Dr. Santos gave the slightest nod. She understood. Wait for the signal. Move when opportunity presents. Kyle was watching the police perimeter through the window, radio in hand, waiting for Shadow Unit's response. His men were focused on the hostages, weapons ready, but posture slightly relaxed. They'd been holding this position for over an hour. Adrenaline was wearing off. Fatigue would follow. Diana needed to wait for the right moment. Push too early, and people died. Wait too long, and SWAT would breach, turning this into a crossfire with civilians in the middle. The radio crackled. Commander Mitchell's voice returned. We're reviewing your demands. We need time to verify your identity and assess the situation. You have 57 minutes, Kyle said. After that, widow's blood is on your hands. He ended transmission and turned to Diana. They're stalling. Running facial recognition, probably. Confirming I'm really alive. Pulling mission files to see what they can't afford to release. They won't release anything, Diana said. You know that. Classified operations stay classified. They'll write both of us off as acceptable losses. Then you'll die proving my point. Shadow Unit sacrifices its own to protect its secrets. That's a headline. One of the nurses started crying. The sound was soft, muffled, but it carried in the tense silence. Kyle's expression softened. I'm sorry you're caught in this. None of you deserve this. But sometimes innocent people have to suffer to expose institutional evil. That's what Shadow Unit taught me. Acceptable losses in pursuit of mission success. Diana saw her opening. You're using their logic, their justification. You've become exactly what you're fighting against. I've become what they made me. The difference is, I'm honest about it. No. You're hiding behind ideology, pretending your violence has meaning because the target is institutional instead of individual. But those nurses, those parents, they're still your victims. You're still the one causing their suffering. Kyle's jaw tightened. I'm not the villain here, Diana. Shadow Unit is. The system is. I'm just the mirror showing people what's been hidden. Mirrors don't take hostages. Some mirrors don't change anything either. Kyle's voice rose. Elena Caruso's family deserves to know the truth. Marcus Webb's family deserves justice. And every operator Shadow Unit has used and discarded deserves acknowledgement that what happened to us was wrong. If terrorizing a hospital for 2 hours makes that happen, then it's worth it. Not to the people you're terrorizing, Diana said quietly. You want to fight Shadow Unit, find journalists, find lawyers, find congressional allies. This isn't fighting. This is revenge dressed up as revolution. Kyle stared at her. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Doubt. Regret. The shadow of the man she'd served beside the one who'd pulled her out of an ambush and never asked for thanks. Then it hardened again. You had 3 years to fight them legally. You chose to hide instead. Don't lecture me about methods when your method was cowardice. The words stung because they were partially true. Diana had run instead of fighting. She'd chosen invisibility over confrontation. Maybe if she'd been braver, if she'd found allies, if she'd tried to expose Shadow Unit properly. But no. She'd seen what happened to whistleblowers. They didn't win. They died quietly or disappeared into federal detention on manufactured charges. The system protected itself. Always. Kyle checked his watch. 51 minutes. Shadow Unit will make their decision soon. Either they negotiate or you die, or SWAT breaches and everyone dies. Those are the scenarios. He was wrong, though. There was a fourth scenario. Diana waited, watched, calculated. And when Kyle turned back to the window, when his men shifted their attention to track police movement outside, when the moment was exactly right, she moved. Diana's move wasn't the explosive action Kyle expected. It was subtle, calculated, the kind of tactic that required patience over aggression. She stumbled, just slightly. A hand to her head, a soft intake of breath, knees buckling like someone hit by sudden vertigo. The nearest hostile young, nervous the one who'd been shifting his weight for the last 10 minutes, stepped forward instinctively. Hey, you all right? That half-second of distraction was all Dr. Santos needed. She stood abruptly, backing toward the supply closet door. She needs medical attention. Low blood sugar maybe, or shock from stress. The other hostile swung his weapon toward Santos. Sit down. Diana used the confusion. Not to attack Kyle's men would cut her down before she reached them, but to shift position. 3 steps closer to the service door. Angle slightly changed. Now she had partial cover from a medical cart. Kyle turned from the window, saw the repositioning. His eyes narrowed. Clever, but not clever enough. He nodded to his men. Restrain her. Hands behind her back. The nervous hostile approached Diana with zip ties. She didn't resist. Let him bind her wrists, knowing that plastic restraints could be broken with the right leverage and timing. Better to be mobile and restrained than neutralized by a bullet. You're not getting out of this tactically, Kyle said. I know how you think. Every move you make, I've already calculated 3 responses. We trained together, remember? I know your patterns. Then you know I'm not going to stop trying, Diana said. I'm counting on it. Because when you fail, when SWAT breaches, and this turns into a bloodbath, Shadow Unit's culpability becomes undeniable. They could have negotiated. They chose violence. Kyle checked his phone. We're viral now. 2 million viewers and climbing. Every move we make is being analyzed by armchair tacticians and former military. Shadow Unit can't bury this. He was right about that. The operation had already succeeded in one objective: visibility. But Diana knew something Kyle didn't. Shadow Unit's response to exposure wasn't negotiation. It was elimination. They wouldn't send negotiators. They'd send a wet team. A cleanup crew designed to erase problems permanently. Kyle, Diana, the hostages, anyone who'd seen too much, would become acceptable losses in service of operational security. She needed to get these people out before that team arrived. The radio crackled. Commander Mitchell's voice. We're prepared to discuss terms, but we need proof of life for Widow. Let her speak. Kyle held the radio toward Diana. Tell them you're alive. Tell them you're cooperating. Diana met his eyes, spoke into the radio. This is Diana Walsh, former designation Widow. I'm unharmed. 12 civilian hostages remain. Kyle Bennett is demanding release of classified files on Operation Designation. She paused, remembering the code. Operation Designation Nightshade, the Elena Caruso termination. Static. Then, acknowledged. Stand by for response. Kyle lowered the radio. Nightshade. You remember the operation code. That's good. They can't claim ignorance now. They know exactly what I'm talking about. They'll never release those files, Diana said. You're wasting time. I'm creating a public record. Every minute they delay, every refusal to negotiate, it proves my point. They'd rather let hostages die than admit they ordered an execution. One of the nurses spoke up, an older woman, maybe 50, with tired eyes that had seen too many long shifts. You keep saying you're exposing them, but you're the one holding a gun to our heads. You're the one making us victims. How does that make you better? Kyle's expression flickered. You're collateral damage in a necessary war. That's what terrorists always say, the nurse replied. That their cause justifies our suffering. But we're still suffering. And you're still the one causing it. Diana saw it then, the crack in Kyle's conviction. The moment when ideology met reality and couldn't quite reconcile. He'd told himself this was justice, that his victims were symbols rather than people. But standing in a room with 12 terrified civilians who'd done nothing except exist in the wrong place, the narrative was harder to maintain. 43 minutes, Kyle said, turning away, hiding his face. Shadow Unit has 43 minutes to decide if they care about the truth. Diana tested the zip ties. Tight, but not impossibly so. She'd need time and leverage. She scanned the room again, recalculating. The medical cart was close enough to use as cover if she could get to it. The service door was still her best exit. Dr. Santos was watching her, waiting for a signal, but then Kyle's radio crackled again. Different voice this time. Not Commander Mitchell. Someone deeper, more authority. This is Director Castellano, Shadow Unit Command. I'm authorized to negotiate directly. Kyle's head snapped up. Diana felt her blood go cold. Director Anthony Castellano, the man who ran Shadow Unit's most classified operations. If he was personally involved, this had escalated beyond damage control. They were playing a bigger game now. Director, Kyle said. Good of you to join us. Will you be acknowledging Operation Nightshade publicly? I'm prepared to discuss your terms in private, but I need assurances that the hostages will be released unharmed. My assurance is that if you release the files, everyone walks out alive. If you don't, Shadow Unit's culpability and whatever happens next becomes a matter of public record. A pause. Then Castellano's voice, quieter now, more personal. Kyle, I know why you're doing this. I know what happened to you. But this isn't the way. You erased me, Kyle said, voice tight with controlled rage. You sent me on a mission you knew was suicide. And when I survived, you declared me KIA and cut me loose. Don't tell me about the right way when you've spent 15 years running illegal operations. The mission was compromised. We had to make difficult choices. You had to silence witnesses. Marcus Webb asked questions, so you killed him. Diana asked questions, so you forced her out. I asked questions, so you tried to kill me. How many others? How many operators have you erased when they became inconvenient? Diana's mind raced. Kyle had been on a mission that went bad. Shadow Unit had tried to kill him rather than extract him. That's why he'd faked his death. It wasn't entirely fake. They'd tried to make it real. There's context you don't understand, Castellano said. Operational security requires murdering journalists and your own people. That's not security. That's tyranny. If you surrender now, we can debrief you properly. We can explain. I don't want explanations. I want accountability. I want Elena Caruso's family to know their daughter was executed by her own government. I want Marcus Webb's family to know he was murdered for threatening to expose you. I want every Operation Shadow Unit has buried to see daylight. That's not going to happen, Castellano said flatly. National security requires certain operations remain classified. You know that. You signed the same documents Diana did. I signed up to defend my country, not to murder journalists and cover up war crimes. Elena Caruso was working with hostile intelligence services. She was providing information that got American personnel killed. So that's a lie. Kyle's voice cracked. I saw the files. Real files, not the sanitized briefing we got. She was investigating illegal weapons sales. Shadow Unit was running arms to insurgent groups to justify continued military presence in the Northern Territories. She found proof. So you ordered her killed and called it counterterrorism. Diana's breath stopped. That was the missing piece. The reason Elena Caruso had to die. Not because she was working with the enemy, because she'd discovered Shadow Unit was. Those allegations are false, Castellano said. You're operating on incomplete information. I have documentation, bank records, shipping manifests, names of Shadow Unit personnel involved in the arms transfers. I've had 5 years to compile evidence. And when this broadcast ends, it's all getting released to every major news outlet in 3 continents. Silence on the radio. Diana could almost hear Castellano's mind working through scenarios, calculating how to contain this. Then you've already made your decision, Castellano said finally. You're going to release the information regardless. So what's the point of this? What do you really want, Kyle? I want the world to see Shadow Unit for what it is. And I want Diana to understand that we were both victims. That what happened to us wasn't our failure. It was institutional betrayal. Is that what this is about? Castellano's voice shifted, became almost gentle. You want Diana to absolve you. You want her to agree that you're a victim. Kyle's hand tightened on the radio. I want her to stop hiding. Stop pretending she can wash off the blood. She thinks mopping floors makes her different from me. But we're the same. Shadow Unit made us both into killers. The only difference is I'm fighting back. Diana spoke before she could stop herself. We're not the same. You're terrorizing innocent people. I'm trying to protect them. You're protecting the system that destroyed you. Kyle turned to face her. 3 years pushing a mop. 3 years living like a ghost. 3 years of penance for a sin Shadow Unit committed. And you think that's noble? You think that's different from what I'm doing? Yes, Diana said simply. Because I'm not holding guns to people's heads to make them listen. Kyle's expression twisted. Pain and rage and something desperate. They won't listen otherwise. Elena's family tried legal routes, congressional oversight, media investigations, and Shadow Unit buried it all. The only way to force accountability is to make the cost of silence higher than the cost of truth. At what cost? Diana gestured to the hostages with her bound hands. These people have families too. Children who need them. You're creating new victims to avenge old ones. That's not justice. That's just spreading the suffering. Sometimes suffering is the only language power understands. Then you've learned nothing. You're using Shadow Unit's logic, their methods. You've become what you're fighting. Kyle's voice rose. I've accepted what I am, what they made me. You're the one still in denial, still pretending you can be someone else. The radio crackled. Castellano's voice. Kyle, we're deploying a tactical team. You have 30 minutes to surrender. After that, we're coming in. The hostages will be caught in the crossfire. Their blood will be on your hands. Kyle smiled coldly. The world is watching, Director. If hostages die during a rescue operation, everyone will know Shadow Unit chose violence over negotiation. That's a story you can't bury. We don't negotiate with terrorists. You know that. And then you'll have to kill me. And Diana. And accept the publicity nightmare. Because I guarantee you, the moment your team breaches, I'm uploading everything, every document, every file, every piece of evidence I've compiled. Shadow Unit's darkest secrets go public. You're bluffing. Try me. The transmission ended. Kyle lowered the radio and turned to his men. Tactical team incoming. Probably roof insertion standard hostage rescue protocol. We need to reposition. Move the hostages to the interior room. No windows. Limit entry points. His men moved immediately, herding the hostages toward a treatment room deeper in the pediatric wing. Diana stayed behind, testing her restraints, looking for an opportunity. Kyle noticed. Approached her. You're wondering if you can stop me before SWAT arrives. You're calculating scenarios. Can you break the zip ties? Can you neutralize my men before they shoot hostages? Can you get everyone out alive? Yes, Diana said. And what's your conclusion? She said that you're going to force me to choose between saving hostages and stopping you. And you're counting on me to choose the hostages, which gives you time to complete your mission. Kyle nodded. See, we think alike. Shadow Unit trained us well. They trained us to protect people. You're doing the opposite. I'm protecting the truth. That's more important than any individual life. Tell that to the families of the people you're willing to kill for it. Kyle's expression darkened. He grabbed Diana's arm, not roughly but firmly, and pulled her toward the stairwell. His men were still moving hostages, distracted. They entered the darkened stairwell alone. Kyle closed the door behind them. The emergency lighting cast everything in dim red shadows. I need you to understand something, Kyle said quietly. I didn't want it to be like this. I wanted you on my side, fighting with me, exposing them together. By taking hostages, by threatening to kill children, that was your plan to get me on your side. I knew you'd come. I knew you couldn't stay hidden if innocent lives were at stake. I needed you visible. Needed Shadow Unit to have to acknowledge you exist. He stepped closer. But more than that, I needed you to see, to understand that we're both victims of the same system. That the guilt you carry isn't yours, it's theirs. Diana studied his face, saw the desperation there, the pain. You didn't come here to expose Shadow Unit. You came here for me. Kyle's jaw tightened. I came here to finish what we started, to make them pay for Elena, for Marcus, for every operator they've used and discarded. No. You came here because you needed someone to understand, someone who'd lived through what you lived through. You're not trying to save anyone, Kyle. You're trying not to feel alone. His hand moved to his sidearm. Not threatening, just present. Maybe. Does it matter Shadow Unit is still guilty? Elena still deserves justice. Marcus still deserves to be remembered as something other than a training accident. And 12 hostages still deserve to go home tonight, Diana said. Let them go. Keep me. Fight your war with Shadow Unit. But let the innocent people walk away. They already know too much. They've seen your face, heard your confession. They're witnesses to classified information. Diana felt cold spread through her chest. Shadow Unit will eliminate them. If SWAT breaches and things go bad, yes. They'll classify everyone as collateral damage and bury the truth. That's why I need this broadcast. Need the world watching. So Shadow Unit can't just clean up quietly. No, or you're giving them targets, making sure they have to do damage control by eliminating everyone who saw too much. Kyle's expression flickered. He hadn't considered that. Or he had, and accepted it as acceptable losses. You're not trying to save anyone, Diana said again. You're trying to hurt Shadow Unit, even if it means sacrificing the people in that room. So they're already sacrificed, Kyle said quietly. The moment Shadow Unit got involved, those people were dead. I'm just making their deaths mean something. Their deaths don't mean anything except more suffering, more families grieving, more victims of a system that devours everyone it touches. Then help me change the system. Kyle's voice rose, echoing in the stairwell. Stand with me, testify, release the information. Together we can force accountability. By becoming terrorists, by proving Shadow Unit right that we're dangerous, by giving them justification to eliminate every operator who questions orders. Diana shook her head. You're not changing the system. You're feeding it. Kyle stared at her. The dim red light made his face look like a wound. I thought you'd understand. I thought after 3 years of hiding you'd want to fight back. I do want to fight back. But not like this. Not by creating new victims. Not by becoming what they made us. Then what's your alternative? Mop floors until you die. Hope penance makes up for murder. His voice dropped. Diana, we can't wash off this blood. We can't become different people. The only choice we have is whether to accept what we are or keep pretending. I accept what I was, Diana said. I'm trying to become something better. There is no better. There's only different kinds of killing. You chose invisible survival. I chose visible resistance. Neither of us gets redemption. Diana looked at him. Really looked. Saw the man she'd served beside. The one who'd pulled her from burning vehicles and talked her down from guilt spirals after difficult missions. The one who'd understood what it cost to take lives and never pretended it was easy. That man was still in there, buried under rage and ideology and 5 years of surviving Shadow Unit's betrayal. In Kyle, she said quietly. Let me help you. Not this way. but we can find another way. We can. The door burst open. One of Kyle's men panicked. Boss SWAT's on the roof. They're breaching in 2 minutes. We need to move now. Kyle's face hardened. The moment of vulnerability vanished. Secure the hostages. Interior room, no windows. Set the breaching charges on the doors. If they come through, we blow the entryways. Kyle, don't, Diana started. He turned to her. You had a choice. Stand with me or watch people die. You chose wrong. He dragged her back into the pediatric wing toward the room where the hostages waited in terrified silence. And Diana realized with horrible clarity that she'd miscalculated. Kyle wasn't here to expose Shadow Unit. He was here to die fighting them, and he was going to take everyone in this building with him rather than surrender, unless she could stop him in the next 90 seconds. With her hands bound, and 2 armed men between her and the hostages, that seemed impossible. But Widow had done impossible things before. She just had to remember how, and accept what it would cost. 90 seconds until breach. Diana's mind shifted into the cold clarity that had kept her alive through 47 missions. Time didn't disappear. It crystallized each second sharp and measurable. Kyle's men pushed the hostages into the interior treatment room, windowless, 1-door, perfect kill box if SWAT came through wrong. The nervous hostile was setting breaching charges on the doorframe. Small charges enough to wound or kill anyone entering, but carefully placed, not to harm the hostages inside. Professional work. Kyle had trained them well. Diana's wrists were still bound behind her back, plastic zip ties cutting into skin. She'd tested them continuously, feeling for weaknesses. Standard restraints rated for 200 pounds of force. She weighed 130. Not enough body weight to snap them through brute strength. But there were other methods. Kyle stood near the window radio in hand, monitoring SWAT's approach. His attention divided between the breach team and the hostages. His sidearm visible on his hip, 3 feet away. Might as well have been 3 miles. Diana counted assets. Her bound hands, her training, her knowledge of the building layout. The medical equipment in the room, IV stands, monitoring devices, scalpels in the supply drawers. The hostages themselves, particularly Dr. Santos, who'd proven capable of following tactical cues, and Marcus Webb's voice in her memory. Always steady, always calculating. Breathe. Find the angle. There's always an angle. 60 seconds. Diana moved toward the medical supply cart, casual, like someone shifting position to relieve tired legs. Kyle's men glanced at her, but didn't stop her. What threat was a bound woman? The cart held standard pediatric supplies. Bandages, antiseptic, disposable syringes. Nothing immediately useful as a weapon. But underneath, mounted to the cart's frame, was a metal footrest for shorter nurses to reach high shelves. Diana turned, using her body to shield her hands from view. Found the footrest's edge with her bound wrists. The metal was sharp where it had been welded to the frame. She began sawing, subtle movements. Small motions that looked like nervous fidgeting. The plastic zip tie started to fray. SWAT team is on the roof, Kyle said, watching through binoculars. 4-man entry team, standard tactical loadout. They'll breach through the maintenance access, work their way down. 45 seconds. One of the hostiles, the older one more experienced, checked his weapon. We're outnumbered. They'll have flashbangs, body armor coordination. We can't win a straight fight. We're not here to win, Kyle said. We're here to make a point. When they breach, we hold until I finish the upload. Then it doesn't matter what happens to us. Diana's wrists burned as she sawed faster. The zip tie was giving way, individual strands snapping. Almost through. Just a little more. What about the hostages? The hostile asked. Shall they stay put? SWAT won't risk collateral damage. And if they do, that's on Shadow Unit, not us. 30 seconds. The zip tie broke. Diana kept her hands behind her back. maintaining the illusion of restraint. Her fingers tingled as circulation returned. She flexed them slowly, preparing for action. Dr. Santos caught her eye. Diana made a subtle gesture, finger pointing down, then up. Get low. Move when I move. Santos nodded fractionally. 20 seconds. Above them, sounds of movement. Boots on roof access. SWAT was positioning for entry. They'd come fast flashbangs first, then shooters, overwhelming force designed to end things before hostiles could react. But Diana knew something SWAT didn't. The breaching charges were set to detonate on door entry. The moment SWAT tried to come through, anyone in the blast radius would be shredded. She had to disable the charges, had to neutralize Kyle's men, had to do it all before SWAT's breach created a massacre. 10 seconds. Kyle checked his phone one last time. Uploads queued. The moment SWAT breaches, it goes live. Every document, every file. Shadow Unit's darkest secrets released to 40 journalists simultaneously. He looked at Diana. This is what justice looks like. Messy, violent, but necessary. This is what revenge looks like, Diana said. And it's going to get innocent people killed. They were always going to die. At least this way their deaths expose the truth. 5 seconds. Diana moved, not toward Kyle, toward the nervous, hostile setting the breaching charges. He was crouched by the door, focused on the detonator, vulnerable. She covered 3 feet in a heartbeat. Her freed hands grabbed an IV stand, swung it in a tight arc. The metal pole connected with the hostile's temple. He dropped unconscious before he hit the floor. His weapon clattered away. Diana scooped it up, turned. The second hostile was already raising his rifle. Diana didn't hesitate. 2 shots. Center mass. He staggered back, body armor absorbing the rounds, but the impact knocking him off balance. Kyle's sidearm cleared leather. Diana threw herself behind the medical cart as his first shot punched through the metal where her head had been. Everyone down, Diana shouted to the hostages. Get low, cover your heads. Dr. Santos reacted instantly, pulling people down, using her body to shield a nurse. Above the roof, access door exploded inward. Flashbang detonations, 3 in rapid succession. Even through walls, the sound was deafening. White light leaked through ventilation gaps. SWAT was coming. Kyle fired twice more at Diana's position, then turned and ran toward the stairwell. Not fleeing, repositioning. He was heading for high ground, for a defensive position where he could control the approach. Diana made a split-second calculation. Chase Kyle or disable the breaching charges. The charges won. If SWAT came through that door, the blast would kill half the hostages. She low-crawled to the unconscious hostile, grabbed the detonator from his belt. Simple remote trigger 2-channel system. She switched both channels to safe, then physically disconnected the wiring. The charges were dead. SWAT boots thundered down the stairs. Diana shouted at the top of her lungs, "Federal operative hostages are secured. Breaching charges are disarmed. Hold breach." A voice from the stairwell, "Identify yourself." Diana Walsh, former Shadow Unit designation, widow. I have hostages secured. Hostile leader has fled to upper floors. 2 hostiles neutralized. Silence. Then, widow doesn't exist. Shadow Unit says you're inactive. Of course they did. Diana was erased. Non-existent. SWAT had no official record of her. I'm standing in the pediatric wing with 12 hostages and 2 downed hostiles. You can verify or you can breach. Your choice. A pause. Then the SWAT commander made the smart call. Hold position. We're coming in slow. Anyone moves, we engage. The door opened carefully. 2 SWAT officers entered, weapons raised, scanning for threats. They saw Diana Hand's visible weapon on the ground, standing between them and the hostages. Hostages are in the interior room, Diana said. Unharmed. The hostile leader Kyle Bennett fled toward the roof. He has a dead man's switch on a data upload. If he's killed or captured, classified information gets released automatically. The SWAT commander, a woman in her 40s with hard eyes, studied Diana. "You're the janitor. I've seen you in this building." "I'm a lot of things," Diana said. "Right now, I'm the person who just saved 12 lives. Kyle Bennett is the target. Former Shadow Unit believed KIA. He's armed and willing to die for his cause." The commander spoke into her radio. Hostages secured pediatric wing. Suspect fled to upper floors, requesting air support to monitor roof access. She turned back to Diana. "You're coming with us. Shadow Unit wants you in custody." "I know. But first help me stop Kyle. He's going to force you to kill him. And when you do, a lot of classified information goes public. Information that will hurt people who don't deserve it." "No, that's above my pay grade. My mission is hostage rescue. Hostages are rescued. We're done here." "He still has explosives. He's still dangerous. And he's on the roof with high ground and nothing to lose." Diana met the commander's eyes. "You send your team up there, he'll pick them off. You need someone who knows him, who knows how he thinks." The commander hesitated. "Then, you go up with my team. You're unarmed. You advise only. If you make a move I don't like, you're restrained." "Clear, clear." They moved quickly. SWAT team of 4 plus Diana. Up the stairs, weapons ready, communications tight and professional. These were good operators, well-trained. But they didn't know Kyle. Diana did. The roof access door was open. Wind whipped through from outside. Port Callahan's coastal location meant strong gusts, temperature dropping as evening approached. Kyle stood near the roof's edge, 40 feet away, phone in hand, weapon holstered. He wasn't trying to fight anymore. He was waiting. "That's far enough," he called out when the team emerged. "Uploads queued. I press send, it goes out. You can kill me, but you can't stop the information." The SWAT commander spoke. "Kyle Bennett, put the phone down. We can negotiate." "No, you can't." Kyle's voice was calm, almost peaceful. "This was always how it ended. The moment I walked into that hospital, the moment I took hostages, I accepted that I wouldn't walk out. That's fine. I made my peace with it." Diana stepped forward, ignoring the SWAT commander's hissed warning. "Kyle, don't do this, please." He smiled when he saw her. "You came. I knew you would. Couldn't stay hidden. Couldn't let someone else take the shot. There doesn't have to be a shot. Put the phone down. Come in peacefully. We'll testify together. Legal channels. Proper investigation." "Legal channels are how Shadow Unit buries people. You know that." Kyle held up the phone. "This is the only way. Truth through force. Accountability through exposure. See, it's not accountability. It's revenge. And it won't bring Elena back. Won't bring Marcus back. Won't change what happened to us. No. But it will make sure it doesn't happen to others. Every operator who questions orders. Every journalist who investigates classified crimes. Every whistleblower who tries to expose institutional evil, they'll have proof that fighting back is possible." Diana took another step forward. The SWAT team tensed but held position. "You want proof that fighting back is possible, then surrender. Stand trial. Testify publicly. Be the witness, not the martyr. Show that the system can be challenged without becoming a terrorist." Kyle laughed, bitter and broken. "I stopped being anything but a terrorist the moment I took those children hostage. There's no redemption for me, Diana. There never was. Shadow Unit made sure of that 5 years ago when they tried to kill me. Then let me be your redemption," Diana said quietly. "Let me testify to what you've compiled. Let me be the one who exposes them. You don't have to die for this. But I do. Because if I live, I'm just another crazy veteran, another conspiracy theorist. But if I die, if Shadow Unit kills me on a rooftop after I expose their crimes, I become proof. Martyrdom carries weight. Death makes people listen. Behind Diana, the SWAT sniper was positioning. She could feel it, the shift in air, the minute adjustment of angles. They were preparing for the shot. She had seconds. "Kyle," she said, "remember the Northern Territories. Operation Sandstorm. You were my spotter. We had that target in the compound, but you saw the women and children first. You told me to wait. You made me wait until we had clean confirmation, because you wouldn't let me kill innocent people. That was you. That was the man I trusted. He's still in there. Don't let Shadow Unit turn you into what they always said we were." Kyle's hand trembled. The phone wavered. "Those women and children died anyway. Different day. Different operation. We didn't save them. We just delayed their execution. No. We gave them one more day. One more day with their families. One more sunrise. That mattered. Every life we saved, even temporarily, mattered. And every life we took." Kyle's voice cracked. "Does that matter less because we were following orders? It matters the same, which is why we have to be better now, why we have to choose different methods, why we have to prove that we're more than what they made us." Kyle looked at the phone, looked at Diana, looked at the sky turning dark above Port Callahan. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for dragging you into this, for making you face what you've been running from, for using those children as leverage. I'm sorry for all of it. But I'm not sorry for fighting back. Even if I fought wrong, at least I fought." His thumb moved toward the phone screen. Diana's hand moved to her hip. Not to a weapon SWAT had disarmed her. To empty space. To muscle memory. To the phantom weight of a Mark 7 precision rifle that wasn't there. But the SWAT sniper's rifle was. And in that moment, Diana made a choice. She dove sideways, shouting, "Don't shoot!" as she crossed the sniper's line of fire. The shot went wide. Intentionally wide. The sniper was good enough to pull the trigger with Diana in the way. Kyle pressed send. The upload started. Documents, files, bank records, mission logs. 5 years of compiled evidence against Shadow Unit spreading across the internet like wildfire. Then Kyle dropped the phone and raised his hands. "It's done," he said. "The truth is out. You can arrest me now, or kill me. Doesn't matter anymore." The SWAT team moved forward, weapons raised. Diana stayed on the ground, hands visible as they secured Kyle in restraints. Professional, efficient, no violence necessary. As they led him past her, Kyle stopped. Looked down at her with something like gratitude. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing me, for understanding, even if you didn't agree." "I see you," Diana said. "I just wish you'd chosen a different way." "There wasn't another way. Not for me." He smiled sadly. "But maybe there is for you. Maybe you can be better than I was. Maybe you can find redemption I couldn't." They took him away. The SWAT commander helped Diana to her feet. "That was stupid. You could have been shot." "But I had to give him the chance," Diana said. "Had to let him make the choice, even if it was the wrong one. The information's out now. Shadow Unit's going to have a hell of a cleanup on their hands." Diana looked at the city below. Lights coming on as evening deepened. Somewhere down there, 17 children were safe with their families. 12 adults were being reunited with loved ones. 1 hospital was secure. And 1 former operative had just exposed the darkest corners of the organization that had created them both. "Yeah," Diana said quietly. "They are." The commander's radio crackled. SWAT leader be advised Shadow Unit is requesting custody of widow for debriefing. Immediate transfer. The commander looked at Diana. You knew this was coming. I did. They're going to disappear you, properly this time. I know. You saved those hostages. You deserve better. Diana smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Deserve doesn't enter into it. I'm a ghost who stayed visible too long. Time to pay the price. They led her down from the roof. Back through the hospital, where she'd mopped floors for 3 years. Past the pediatric wing, where children had been held hostage. Past the nurses' station, where she'd chatted about weather and weekend plans. Past the maintenance closet, where a Mark 7 precision rifle had waited for 3 years just in case. Diana Walsh, the janitor, was dead. Widow had returned. And now both of them would disappear into Shadow Unit's darkness. But 17 children had lived. And that had to be enough. Even if redemption was impossible. Even if forgiveness was a dream. Even if she was about to vanish into a black site and never see daylight again. 17 children had lived. Marcus would have called that a win. She hoped wherever he was, he agreed. They didn't take her to a black site. They took her to a conference room. 3 days after the hospital. Port Callahan's waterfront district, unmarked building, 7th floor. No windows, no recording devices, at least none Diana could see. Just a table, 4 chairs, and Director Anthony Castellano sitting across from her with a folder he hadn't opened yet. Diana's wrists weren't bound. She hadn't been processed, fingerprinted, or formally arrested. She'd been invited to a debriefing with the understanding that refusal meant a different kind of conversation. The permanent kind. She'd accepted the invitation. Castellano looked older than she remembered. Grayer. More lines around his eyes. 3 days of media firestorm would do that. Kyle's uploaded files had spread faster than Shadow Unit could contain them. News agencies, congressional committees, international human rights organizations, everyone wanted answers about Operation Nightshade, about Elena Caruso, about a dozen other classified missions that suddenly had documentation. You could have stopped him, Castellano said finally. Before he uploaded, you had opportunities. I was busy saving hostages, Diana replied. You let him complete his mission. You let classified information leak. That constitutes a security breach. I prevented a massacre. 17 children walked out alive. 12 adults survived. 2 hostile operatives were neutralized. Kyle Bennett was captured. That's a successful resolution by any metric. Castellano opened the folder. The public thinks you're a hero. Janitor who secretly saved the day. Social media is calling you Captain America with a mop. There's a GoFundMe for your legal defense that's raised $2 million. Congressional oversight committees want you to testify. 3 publishers want book deals. And Shadow Unit wants me dead, Diana said. That's why I'm here. You're deciding how to handle the woman who's suddenly too visible to quietly eliminate. If we wanted you dead, you'd be dead. Maybe. Or maybe the public attention makes that complicated. Kill me now, and you prove Kyle's point that Shadow Unit silences witnesses. Let me live, and you risk what I might say. Castellano closed the folder. What do you want, Diana? The question surprised her. What do I want? You saved lives. You prevented a disaster. You're entitled to something. So what is it? Immunity, witness protection, reinstatement. Diana studied his face. He wasn't lying, he genuinely wanted to know. Shadow Unit was in crisis mode, calculating damage control, and somehow her wants factored into their equation. When I want to be left alone, she said quietly. I want to go back to being nobody. I want to mop floors and wave at children and never touch a rifle again. God, that's not possible anymore. You're famous. Your face is on every news channel. Diana Walsh, the heroic janitor, is a household name. Then I'll become someone else. We can arrange that. New identity, relocation, financial support, in exchange for your silence about Shadow Unit operations. You want me to take a payoff and disappear? I want you to have a life, Castellano said. You've earned that much, more than Kyle did. He chose martyrdom. You chose salvation. There should be a difference in outcome. Diana leaned back. What about Elena Caruso's family? What about Marcus Webb's family? What about accountability for the missions Kyle exposed? There will be an investigation, congressional oversight, probably some personnel changes. Operations will be reviewed. Castellano's expression hardened. But Shadow Unit will continue, because someone has to do the work nobody else wants to do. Someone has to make the hard choices, and sometimes those choices involve casualties, like Elena, like Marcus, like the 47 people you eliminated over 5 years. Castellano met her eyes. You're not innocent, Diana. None of us are. We all made compromises. We all followed orders that didn't sit right. The only question is whether we accept that we were serving a greater purpose, or we tear down the entire structure because it's imperfect. Kyle chose to tear it down, and now he's in federal custody facing terrorism charges. Life in prison, probably. Is that better than what you chose? 3 years of penance followed by 1 moment of heroism. Diana thought about Kyle on the roof. The peace in his expression when he pressed send. The relief of finally fighting back even if the method was wrong. She thought about Marcus Webb falling from a training tower that should never have killed someone with his experience. She thought about Elena Caruso standing in a window with a camera and a laptop documenting truths that got her murdered. She thought about 17 children walking out of a hospital alive because Diana had remembered what Marcus taught her. There's always an angle. You just have to find it. I don't want your money, Diana said. I don't want witness protection or a new identity. Castellano frowned. Then what do you want? Chuck, I want you to release the full report on Marcus Webb's death. I want his family to know he didn't die in an accident. I want them to know he died questioning orders, and that matters. That's classified, Hutton. It's declassified now. Kyle's upload included Marcus's file. It's already public. You can't bury it anymore, but you can officially acknowledge it. You can tell his family the truth. You can give them that much. Castellano was silent for a long moment. And in exchange I disappear, for real this time. No testimony, no book deals, no congressional hearings. Diana Walsh goes back to being a janitor somewhere else and Widow stays dead. You're giving up leverage. The public wants to hear from you. You could force real accountability. Such as I could force a circus, Diana corrected. Congressional hearings that go nowhere. Media attention that fades in 6 months. Shadow Unit would weather the storm and continue operating. Nothing would actually change except more people would die trying to expose operations that will never stop. So you're accepting that the system is broken, but refusing to fight it. I'm accepting that I can't fix it alone. But I can save individual lives. One hospital, one crisis, one moment at a time. That's what I'm good at. Not politics, not revolutions. Just keeping people alive when everything goes wrong. Castellano studied her. You're a better person than most of us. I'm a person who killed 47 people and has to live with that. Being better doesn't enter into it. He stood, extended his hand. Marcus Webb's family will receive the unredacted report within the week. Official acknowledgement that his death was not an accident. Full honors burial if they want it. Diana shook his hand. Thank you. And Diana, if you ever change your mind about testifying about going public, don't. Shadow Unit has a long memory, and not everyone in the organization is as reasonable as me. Understood. She left the building an hour later, walked 3 blocks, and caught a bus heading south. No surveillance that she could detect. No tails. Castellano had kept his word for now. The bus was mostly empty. Evening commuters heading home. A mother with 2 children. An elderly man reading a newspaper with Diana's face on the front page. Janitor hero saves hospital. The photo was from her employee ID, 3 years old. She barely recognized herself. At the edge of the coastal region, she got off the bus and walked to a bar she'd never visited before. Small place, dim lighting. The kind of establishment where people came to forget not to socialize. She ordered water, sat in the back corner, watched the television above the bar playing news coverage. Kyle Bennett's trial was scheduled for 6 months from now. The leaked documents had triggered 4 separate congressional investigations. Shadow Unit was under scrutiny. Personnel were being shuffled. Operations were being reviewed. It would amount to nothing. Diana knew that. The system protected itself. Always. But 17 children were alive. Marcus Webb's family would finally know the truth. Elena Caruso's family had documentation that their daughter wasn't killed by terrorists. She was murdered for exposing corruption. Small victories, not redemption, not justice, just something. The bartender glanced at her. "You look familiar. You on TV or something?" Diana shook her head. "Just have one of those faces." "Huh. Could have sworn." He shrugged and moved on. She sat in the darkness for 2 hours. The water grew warm. The television cycled through stories, political scandals, weather patterns, celebrity gossip. Diana Walsh, the janitor hero, faded from the headlines. Someone else's crisis took center stage. Invisibility returned slowly, gratefully. At midnight, she left the bar and walked to a motel on the outskirts of Port Callahan. Paid cash for a week. The clerk didn't recognize her, didn't ask questions. In the small room, Diana opened a duffel bag she'd packed before the debriefing. Inside, Marcus Webb's old military card. The one she'd carried for 3 years. His photo smiled up at her younger, optimistic, believing he was serving something meaningful. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," she thought. "But I made sure they didn't bury you twice. Your family knows now. That has to count for something." She placed the card on the nightstand, sat on the bed, looked at her reflection in the darkened window. Diana Walsh. Walewedo. Whoever she was supposed to be. The next morning, she applied for 3 janitorial positions in cities far from Port Callahan. Used a different name, her 3rd identity in as many years. By evening, she had an interview scheduled. By the end of the week, she had a job, mopping floors, emptying trash, being invisible, exactly where she needed to be. 6 months later, the bar in Port Callahan looked the same as the night she'd left. Dim lighting, empty tables, television playing to an audience that wasn't really watching. Diana had returned for one reason: Kyle's trial verdict had come down. Guilty on all counts. Life in prison, no possibility of parole. The news coverage was minimal, the story had grown old, public attention had moved on. She sat in the same back corner, ordered water, watched the brief segment on the television. Kyle's face appeared on screen. Older now, prison pallor. But his eyes were calm, almost peaceful. He'd gotten what he wanted: acknowledgement, exposure, proof that fighting back was possible even if it meant destroying yourself in the process. The reporter mentioned that several Shadow Unit operations had been officially reviewed, though most findings remained classified. Personnel changes had been made. Director Castellano had retired. The organization continued its work. Nothing had really changed. Everything had changed. Both were true. A figure slid into the seat across from Diana. Lieutenant Maya Santos, the Navy doctor from the hospital, out of uniform now, wearing civilian clothes, carrying herself like someone who'd seen too much. "I've been looking for you," Santos said. "You found me. Took 6 months. You're good at disappearing." Practice. Santos ordered a drink, waited until the bartender was out of earshot. I testified at Kyle's trial, told them what happened in that hospital, how you saved those people, how you stopped him from killing hostages, how you gave him the chance to surrender. Doesn't matter now, he's convicted. Chut, it matters to the families. It matters to the children who lived. Santos leaned forward. It matters to me. I was career military. 20 years. I believed in the system. Believed that we were the good guys making hard choices for the right reasons. Then I saw what you did. How you chose lives over ideology. How you saved people even though it meant destroying your own anonymity. That mattered. Diana didn't respond. Didn't know how. I resigned my commission, Santos continued. I'm working at a civilian hospital now. Emergency medicine. Saving lives without having to calculate political costs. It's better. I'm better. Because of what you showed me. I didn't show you anything. I just tried not to let children die. You showed me that there's a difference between following orders and doing what's right, even when they seem like the same thing. Santos stood. Thank you. For that. For everything. She left before Diana could respond. Diana sat alone in the darkness. Her water had grown warm again. The television had moved on to sports scores. The bartender was wiping down glasses, not paying attention to the solitary woman in the corner. Nobody knew her here. Nobody recognized her. The hero janitor had faded from memory, replaced by newer stories, fresher crises. Diana Walsh had disappeared again. Widow had been buried again. And the woman who remained, whoever she was, would keep mopping floors and saving lives when she could, and carrying the weight of 47 deaths plus one impossible day, when everything went right and wrong simultaneously. She finished her water, left cash on the table, walked out into the Port Callahan night. The hospital was visible in the distance, lit up against the dark sky. Somewhere in there, children were sleeping in the pediatric ward. Nurses were making rounds. Doctors were saving lives. And somewhere a janitor was mopping floors, invisible and essential, keeping the world clean enough for tomorrow. Diana turned away and walked into the darkness. Anonymous, alone, alive. Exactly as it should be. 3 years later, final scene. The new bar was in a different city. Different state. Same dim lighting. Same quiet corners where invisible people came to sit with their ghosts. Diana, though, she went by Sarah now, or maybe Jennifer. The names blurred together after enough years sat with an untouched glass in front of her. The television above the bar showed a documentary, The Port Callahan Hospital Crisis 3 years later. She watched without expression as they interviewed survivors. The father whose daughter lived. Dr. Santos now running an emergency clinic. The SWAT commander who'd secured the hostages. They talked about the heroic janitor who'd saved them. Showed her employee photo. Speculated where she'd gone, why she'd disappeared. Some people say she was CIA, one talking head said. Others think she was in witness protection. The truth is, nobody knows who Diana Walsh really was. She showed up, saved lives, and vanished. A real-life mystery. The documentary didn't mention widow. Didn't mention shadow unit. Those details had been classified again, buried under national security exemptions. Kyle's trial records were sealed. The uploaded documents had been scrubbed from major platforms, dismissed as conspiracy theories. The system had protected itself. Like it always did. But 17 children had grown 3 years older. 12 adults had lived 3 more years with their families. Marcus Webb's grave had a proper headstone now acknowledging his real service. Elena Caruso's family had closure even if they couldn't speak about it publicly. Small victories, not redemption, never redemption. But something, the bartender approached. Another water? No thank you, just the check. He squinted at her. You know you look like that woman. The one from the hospital. The hero janitor. Diana smiled. It almost reached her eyes. People tell me that sometimes. I just have one of those faces. Huh. Must be weird looking like a celebrity. I manage. She paid in cash, left a generous tip, walked out into the night. No surveillance, no tails, no one following. Just another anonymous woman in another anonymous city carrying ghosts nobody else could see. In her pocket, Marcus Webb's military card, worn now, fading, but still there. Still reminding her of the man who'd taught her that there's always an angle, always a choice, always a way to be better than what they made you. Diana walked to her car, a nondescript sedan paid for in cash, registered under a name that wasn't hers. She'd start driving soon, find another city, another janitorial job, another chance to be invisible and useful, but not tonight. Tonight she'd sit in a parking lot and watch the city lights, and remember 17 children walking out of a hospital alive. Remember Marcus pulling her from a burning vehicle. Remember Elena Caruso's face through a scope forever frozen in that moment before the bullet. Remember Kyle on a rooftop pressing send, choosing martyrdom over redemption. Remember all of it, because someone had to. Because forgetting would be worse than carrying the weight. The documentary ended. The television moved to a sitcom. Laughter echoed from the bar behind her. Diana started the car, drove to a cheap motel on the edge of the city, checked in under another name, lay on a bed that smelled like industrial detergent and old cigarettes. Tomorrow she'd wake up and be someone else. Another name, another job, another version of invisible. But tonight, she was Diana Walsh. Former designation, widow. A woman who'd killed 47 people and saved 17 children, and was still trying to figure out which number mattered more. She closed her eyes. Marcus's voice in her memory. You can't save everyone, but you can save someone. That has to be enough. It had to be enough, because it was all she had. She returned to that first bar in Port Callahan once more 5 years after the hospital. Late at night, when the crowd had thinned to ghosts and regulars, the television showed news about Shadow Unit's dissolution, officially disbanded after too many scandals, though everyone knew they'd just reorganized under a different name. Operations continued, just with better classification. Diana sat in her corner, water untouched. No one recognized her now. 5 years and plastic surgery had done what time alone couldn't erase Diana Walsh completely. The bartender was new, young, didn't know the stories about the woman who used to sit here. She looked at her reflection in the dark window. A stranger's face stared back. New nose, new cheekbones, new identity purchased with the money from that GoFundMe she'd never wanted. Invisible, finally, completely. The door opened. A young woman entered, early 20s, nervous energy, looking around like she was searching for someone. She spotted Diana and approached. Excuse me, the girl said. Are you... my mom said, are you Diana Walsh? Diana's hand moved toward a weapon that wasn't there. I think you have the wrong person. My mom said to look for a woman sitting alone, drinking water, looking at nothing. The girl's eyes welled up. I was one of the children, from the hospital, the pediatric ward. I had cancer. I'm in remission now. I wanted to say thank you. Diana studied her, recognized her after a moment. The little girl with the bald head, with the stuffed rabbit. Who'd asked if Diana was a good person. She was 18 now, healthy, alive, beautiful. I'm glad you're well, Diana said carefully. But I'm not who you're looking for. The girl smiled through tears. My mom said you'd say that. She said to tell you that 17 of us lived, and we remember. Even if nobody else does, we remember. She placed something on the table. A card, hand-drawn. 17 signatures from the children who'd walked out of that hospital 5 years ago. Thank you written in 17 different hands. The girl left before Diana could respond. Diana stared at the card, picked it up with hands that trembled, read each name, each message, each proof that what she'd done had mattered. She folded it carefully, put it in her pocket next to Marcus Webb's military card. 2 pieces of evidence that she'd been something other than a killer, that she'd saved lives, that some ghosts were worth carrying. The bartender came by. "Friend of yours?" Diana looked up. Her reflection in the mirror behind the bar showed a stranger. But for just a moment, she saw Diana Walsh, saw Widow, saw all the versions of herself that had existed and died and been reborn. "Yeah," she said quietly, "a friend." She finished her water, left cash on the table, walked out into the Port Callahan night one final time. The city lights reflected off wet pavement. Somewhere 17 people were living lives they almost lost. Somewhere Marcus Webb's family visited a grave that told the truth. Somewhere Elena Caruso's name was remembered by people who knew what she'd died trying to expose. Small victories, not redemption, never redemption, but enough. Diana disappeared into the crowd, into the night, into the comfortable anonymity of being nobody. She'd been asked once if she was a good person. She still didn't know the answer. Probably never would. But she'd saved 17 children, and tonight, that was enough. The woman walked away from the bar from Port Callahan, from the ghosts that would follow her forever. And in the darkness, in the silence, in the space where Diana Walsh and Widow and all her other names intersected, she whispered the truth only she would ever hear. They asked my name. I told them Diana. They'll never know about Widow, and that's exactly how it should be.
Here's the thing. Diana could have been stay invisible, could have let someone else handle it. But real heroes don't do it for recognition. They do it because it's right, even when the cost is everything they have built. That's the difference between revenge and redemption. Would you sacrifice everything? Your identity, your safety, your whole life to save people who never know your name? Diana did, and she'd do it again. Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your take. If this story hit your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Real heroism lives in the shadows. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we never see. Stay sharp. Over and out.